Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to talk to you today about cultivating a global ag tech hub through Canada's Ag Tech Accelerator. This is a really exciting partnership between Emmertech Venture Capital, Economic Development Regina, and Cultivator, powered by Conexus. My name is Jordan McFarlen. I am the Incubator Manager at Cultivator, powered by Conexus, technology incubator based here in Saskatchewan. Proudly joined today by Kyle Scott.
Hey, good day, everyone. My name's Kyle Scott. I'm a managing director with Emmertech, a pan-Canadian ag tech investment firm proudly based out of Regina, Saskatchewan.
That's awesome. Today, we're really excited to touch on a few key topics. We're going to chat about why ag tech, why Canada, how we create wins through the Ag Tech Accelerator, why and how Emmertech as a venture capital fund is going to operate, and then finish with a few hot topics. So to get things started off, I'm going to toss it over to Kyle for why ag tech.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jordan. So I'm just going to read off a few stats for you here, just so we're all on the same page about why ag tech and why agriculture more broadly are so important to us here in Canada and all of us as global citizens as well. So globally speaking, agriculture is approximately a $12 trillion industry. 70% of all water usage occurs within agriculture. And one of the more startling statistics, and one of my favorite, is over the next 40 years, we have to produce the same amount of food as we produced in the previous 10,000 years combined. When you take all of these facts and you sum them up, for myself personally, there are very few areas where you can make the impact, a positive impact across the world as you can within agriculture. It impacts all of us here, and it impacts all of our global neighbors as well. And I think when we sit back and think about Emmertech and we think about Cultivator, we understand that food and agriculture needs to occur more sustainably as we continue to move forward. And for me, that really sums up to two levers. You either need to increase yield of the existing land and existing resources we have, and you have to reduce waste. One of the biggest problems in agriculture right now is something to the order of magnitude of 40% of global food production is lost and wasted. And so if you're able to do even small incremental changes to improve that over the next 40 years, you drastically improve the outlook that we have for a food sustainability perspective. So when you think about the ag tech value chain, where we look as Emmertech is everything from the farm to the fork. And you'll probably have heard that term a bunch before, but you think about everything going right to the crop input. So anything that's enhancing seeds and the actual grains that we are growing, through to livestock, through to the actual devices and components that we use to pull grain, so tractors, combines, all those kind of things, all the way through to processing of our core ingredients that will then be fed into our food and beverage as well. And there's a bunch of different trends that we'll dive into in more detail here, but you're thinking about things, people care a lot more about where their food comes from. So I'm speaking directly to things like traceability right now. People care a lot more about how things are grown. So whether you're using synthetic chemistries, whether you're using biological ingredients, and how capital and resource intensive these processes actually are. And so when we take a step back and we think about ag tech, again, and you'll hear me belabor this point over the next 30 minutes here, there just isn't many opportunities in the world where you can have this kind of impact as a global citizen. And so that all sums up to why Canada. We understand at a global macro level why agriculture is so important, but why is it specifically important here in Canada? And there's a few facts just to ground ourselves in that. So 1 out of every 8 employed Canadians works within agriculture. Agriculture represents 7% of our global our domestic GDP, and we're somewhere between the 6th and 8th, depending whose math you use, largest exporter in the world of commodities. And so you take a step back and you go, Canada globally is always seen as a leader within agriculture, and we're also seen as a global leader as global citizens and constituents. We often are seen in quite a positive light from our global neighbors from all corners of the world. And when we speak, frankly, people listen. And so we have a very compelling opportunity here, not only because of our massive land resources, our massive agricultural output, but also our social standing within the global context to actually make a real difference here. And so when you think about what does that actually mean, what does that translate into? Well, it translates into a number of things that need to occur within this Canadian agriculture ecosystem. So you need to be thinking about things like data transmission for for farmers to actually be able to adopt next generation technologies. It's incredibly difficult to use things like predictive analytics or GPS monitoring from your cultivation equipment or from your seeding equipment if you don't have access to the internet. And so there are these foundational pieces that we all need to be working with and working towards to set ourselves up for success. And the great news is we are doing amazing things across the country to put ourselves in a position to take advantage of some of these global macro trends. And it's what gives us a lot of excitement at Emmertech to be able to start investing and backing these entrepreneurs to make sure that Canada captures its rightful place as a global leader within agriculture. And so with that, I'll pass it back to Jordan to talk about how we create these wins within the ecosystem.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Well, now that the table's been set, we can talk about how all the pieces come together. So we're really excited to be taking a unique model to Canada's AgTech Accelerator in that we've got the venture capital fund with the great work that Kyle is doing at Emmertech. We've got a strong industry connection with Economic Development Regina. And then we bring the technology incubator programming via Cultivator. So we're able to address access to capital, access to industry, and the programming needed to help create scalable, globally successful companies. What we're doing through the AgTech Accelerator is we are designing a 3-month accelerator program where we will take companies through a variety of different programming components that I'll get more into. We're going to have one cohort a year, attracting companies all across Canada. These companies will receive an investment, an early equity investment from the Amrtech fund, initially earmarked to be around $100,000. We'll be beginning our first cohort in 2022, and we're typically looking to have around 10 companies per cohort. So if you think about like a Y Combinator model, a very globally successful and popular incubator accelerator program, we're looking to create that in the ag tech space. Why we feel Saskatchewan is uniquely qualified to host that is just the connection to the farmland, the history of agriculture innovation, what we've built here as the fund comes live, and really, just some of those connections to the industry overall that we think give us a unique unfair advantage. Through the program, we plan to provide a bunch of different benefits. One of the biggest things is getting access to expert mentors. So typically through accelerator programming, you're getting access to founders who built things in this space before, successfully exited or sold, sometimes failed, but hopefully failed forward. Furthermore, you're going to get key ag industry contacts. So as we think about where a company might be selling, who their customer is, what part of the supply chain they're connected to, we can make key connections, whether that be for partnerships or insights. We then also provide a ton of perks and discounts to companies to help ensure that their monthly costs are super low while they're heavily investing in their research and development. Additionally, we were trying to provide the producer perspective. So our mission is to be connected to 1 million acres of farmland to help provide a truly producer perspective, farmer perspective to the founders. We want to make sure that these innovations are not built with a disconnection to the farm, but rather built with the farming perspective at the forefront. And then lastly, the big benefit of an accelerator program is really that cohort mentality, working with other individuals who've taken the risk to build a breakthrough in the industry, and so that you can connect with one another. And that stems throughout the companies as well. If you think about chief technology officers connecting with chief technology officers, or marketing teams connecting with one another, but largely speaking, that founder perspective is key. Additionally, when we look at the programming and some of the support we feel is needed for companies at these stages, we think about leadership. We constantly think about sales and revenue. I know a big one for all parties involved is the financial acumen, how we approach raising capital and ensuring that there's a strong financial foundation. Further, the growth strategy, the building of a high-performance team. We can imagine teams when they receive capital, maybe going from 2 to 5 to 10 full-time employees, now to 20, 30, 40, 50. That growth creates great opportunities, but also great leadership challenges. Marketing and customer acquisition is key, and then also making sure that individuals are able to connect with their customers. So that in a nutshell is kind of the high-level perspective of 3-month accelerator program, how we propose to support companies from across Canada, and we'll be starting that off in Q1 2022. So with that, I'll toss it back to Kyle to chat a little bit more about why and how Emmertech is going to work.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. So there's there's a bunch of different things that we could dive into on Emmertech and the venture capital fund, but frankly, there's sort of two things that I hope you walk away understanding, and that is, first of all, we're built from the industry up. We have a number of fantastic partners who happen to be large growers and actual users of the products and of the services that we will be backing. And not a lot of venture capital funds are able to say that. Usually they're structured as generalist funds where they're investing in a bunch of different things across a bunch of different sectors. Emmertech's different. Emmertech is built for the investors who are invested in the fund. And so when you think about, oh, hey, there's this new product or new service who's interested in raising capital, we have pretty good access to hundreds of thousands, and hopefully by the end, a couple million acres of represented land that we're able to go and talk to those actual users and understand their need and whether or not this product or service is going to be applicable within the market. And that's powerful for a number of reasons. The most obvious reason being we then have a pretty good sense whether we're going to have a winner on our hands when we're backing a management team. And so that foundational element and where the capital is actually coming from is critical to us and very, very important. And I think the second thing that we often talk about is there's this sense within Canadian venture capital of smaller checks, more rounds. So people are going out, they're raising, $100,000, then $250,000 and $500,000. And it's an exhaustive process, and it takes a lot of time away from actually building the business. Within agriculture, you don't have that luxury. You don't have that time. Here in Canada, we have one growing cycle a year. And so your typical grower, your typical farmer will maybe get 30 to 40 growing cycles a year. And so what you actually need from your ag tech companies, whether it's a product or a service, is to be well capitalized right from the front, right from the start, and be able to go to market quickly. And so what we do at Emmertech is we place larger bets. And so instead of writing these smaller checks and watching people grow and see what happens over 2 or 3 years, since you don't have that same luxury in agriculture as you do in some other sectors, we write larger checks with management teams who we truly believe in, based on what our own investors and what growers in the marketplace need, want, and suits their requirements to enhance their yield or reduce their waste. And so those two elements, I think, are what we believe set us apart and what we're most excited about as we start to build out Emmertech and deploy capital across Canadian agriculture. The next thing I would say is, what is our investment focus? What kind of companies are we investing in? What stage are they at? And for us, if you think about it, the spectrum of investing from pre-revenue, pre-product, the earliest style investing you can have, all the way through to what we call Series B or Series C. You can think about it as companies who are doing something like $10 million in revenue or more. What our distribution will end up looking like is a big bell curve at the early stage, right at seed, and sort of come down into the later stages. And that's for a number of different reasons. The biggest one being the early companies, your initial check into those companies or your initial investment is smaller, and then you hope to raise it over the coming years as they build out the business. And the later stage companies, you're investing in what we would consider to be somewhat of a known commodity, and you're helping add the last little bit of rocket fuel before they can really become their own standalone, independent, profitable business. And so that's the spectrum of where we're looking to invest. And again, this is across Canada and across the value chain. And so we think that it's a fairly compelling offering. We're extremely excited about our investor base, and we hope that we're able to capitalize on some of the opportunities Canada has here. And so I'll just throw it back to Jordan for one more section here on what we're going to do to actually build out this ag tech hub here in Saskatchewan more broadly.
Yeah, that's awesome, Kyle. It gets me fired up just thinking about how the fund is built, how it comes together, and that unfair advantage of the investors. So we talked a little bit about why ag tech, why Canada, how we create wins through the Accelerator, how the fund's going to work. We're going to jump into a couple questions now to go back and forth and dive in. So, Kyle, I'll start things off here to send it your way. And first question is just, what do you look for most in founding teams when you're considering an ag tech investment? So as Emmertech looks to make their first investment, what does that look like in terms of what you want to see on a founding team?
Oh, that's funny. That's actually a great question. So it's the first two that I will say are not unique to agriculture. They're more general points about who you would look for. So the first one is passion. Yeah. And so no matter what someone knows, no matter what background they have, what experience they have, all those kind of things, if they're not passionate about what they're doing and they can't sit there and, pound the table about why what they're building is going to change the world, that is someone who will very much struggle to attract institutional capital. And that includes us at Emmertech. The second thing I'll highlight, not that it's the second most important, but you already brought it up, was the financial acumen side. And so one of the challenges within agriculture, and it's actually one of the greatest advantages agriculture has too, is that there haven't been a lot of the MBA types who have followed into the industry like some of the other industries. And it actually creates some pretty inherent advantages that the industry has not been as co-opted as some of the other industries have been by that thinking. With that said, what founders need to understand is how they can grow their business profitably, what their unit economics are, and how they can actually, by adding customers, increase profitability. There's often this thought within venture capital that you are supposed to lose money forever. And you can lose money. That's okay. That's why we have burn rates. It's why we have venture capital. But you shouldn't be losing money on the units you're selling. You should be losing money because your cost structure is enabling you to hit your growth projections for the next years. If you removed the excess capacity you had within the organization, you should be able to make money on a unit basis. And so understanding what that actually means and how to implement that is extremely, extremely important. And I think the third thing is, this is more of a personal thing, actually, is I'm always more of the mind that I want to back a team and not an individual.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't always happen. It doesn't always show up. But from my experience investing over the last decade, is if there is a group of people who have complementary skill sets and who work really well together, that is logarithmically more impactful than having one individual who's the leading charge behind the organization. And so, like I say, it's not a prerequisite, but it's certainly something to look for and get really excited about. When there's a group of people who are passionate, have financial acumen, and know how to work together, that's a pretty compelling case, and that becomes a pretty backable team.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks. It's a great question.
No, that's awesome. I feel like any founders watching the session today know what they got to do to get an Emmertech investment now. This is good.
Okay, my turn. I know a big focus of the Accelerator program is to bring key partners to the table. Outside of the founding partners, who else plays a key role?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the biggest thing that we've learned is, it's kind of, it takes a village to raise a child. And that really involves bringing all the key components. So, I think with the early work that we've been able to do, both through Emmertech and through Cultivator, it's such an exciting, partnership with the focus on, just even from the investor base to the connection to producers and farmers, there's just so much exciting overlap there. So we're really excited about the core founding partners with Emmertech, Cultivator, and Economic Development Regina. I think further, though, a really big important piece is getting the provincial and federal support. Very fortunate to have Innovation Saskatchewan involved, playing a key role. Hopefully to have more involvement at the federal level as well, to make sure that we can really have that truly cross-Canada function. And then another piece that I think speaks highly to both a research component, but also a pipeline of talent that we think is going to be crucial to get not only right now into tech, but then now further into ag tech, which is the post-secondaries and the role that they're going to play. So we're really excited to be working with the University of Saskatchewan, University of Regina, and Saskatchewan Polytech, and hopefully be able to share more information on that as we move forward. But, from your core partners to your local, your provincial and federal, to your post-secondary, and then the other component I wanted to make sure I touch on is just the role of industry. When we think about agriculture and, the understanding that industry has, or the connection, the support, the partnerships, whatever that looks like, is going to be integral. And so, for us, there's going to be a key focus there. And then I think we both mentioned it a bunch of times, which is just that access to farmers' perspective, which at the end of the day, it's very much that farmer-focused and founder-focused program. So that's really the key for us of bringing those pieces together.
It is so uniquely critical in agriculture to be able to pull on that lever, and you cannot overstate it versus other venture capital-backed industries. It is so critical, just given the nature of the growing cycles and all those kind of things. So yeah, it makes total sense.
Totally. Next question I've got for you here, Kyle, is what are some of the most compelling problems you see in the ag food space that have yet to be effectively solved? It's a bit open-ended there.
Oh boy. So I feel like we touched on a lot of these right up front. A couple of them that are close to heart for me. One is water. It is astounding when you start to dig into the usage of water and how impactful agriculture is on the global water supply. And anything that tackles that issue. So I'm thinking here about irrigation. I'm thinking about all these sorts of things that it becomes not only a good place to put your economic chips, but you're also in a position to do really good things for the planet. And so that one specifically becomes really exciting for me. I've also become very excited by all the things going on in controlled environment ag. And there's myriad reasons for that, not the least of which is you can replace our single growing season and turn it into a 12-month growing season. And so where you've seen most of the success is if you look 10 years ago, about 10%-ish of the tomatoes that you used to buy at the grocery store came from greenhouses or vertical farming, so controlled environment ag. And now within Canada, it's about 90%. And when you look south of the border, you can see these things happening with leafy greens, with berries, and a bunch of other things. And it becomes fairly compelling for a number of reasons, most of which is the resource intensity. So your actual inputs to your output ratios are astronomically better in controlled environment ag than what can be achieved outside. And the whole point here is not, and this comes back to pretty much everything we'll always talk about. The point is you're not replacing conventional ag. The point is we need to produce the same amount of food in the next 40 years as the previous 10,000 combined. And to be able to do that, you cannot get rid of anything we are doing right now, but you need to figure out a way to produce more. And since, to the best of my knowledge, we're not inventing new arable land across the globe, you have to find different ways to do it. And so those are some of the more esoteric investments. If you take a step back and look at some of the stuff that's just obviously exciting, is everything around farm management. So whether it's predictive analytics to make sure that you're applying the right chemicals, the right fertilizers at the right time, or whether you're looking at precision equipment that allows you fewer passes across the field, or anything that reduces labor time or reduces inputs. All those things continue to be incredibly exciting. And we're already seeing a number of opportunities in that space that seem very interesting and we're pretty excited by.
Yeah.
So when I sum up all of those things, it sort of spans the value chain, which is why we call it ag tech and not anything more narrow than that. But those are kind of the big areas for me.
Yeah.
So I've got one more for you here.
Perfect.
As well. So if you can, how does the program aim to get founders connected to markets outside of Canada for future global expansion?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think the way things are built and the way we're structuring it initially through all the partnerships involved, we've got a really strong cross Canada network. But we inevitably know, as you mentioned, it's very much a global industry, a global challenge, and a global opportunity. So for us, a few of the things is we're fortunately a member of the Global Accelerator network, which taps us into a global, association of accelerators from all over the world, which can really help companies get into new markets. So whether they're tackling or trying to connect into Australia, into South America, into Asia, we can make those introductions and try to create those soft landings, which is a really big piece. Another one for us is some things we've been working on with a group out of Innovate UK in the United Kingdom and based in London, is trying to create a global cohort connection so that we can have 10 of the most promising, highest potential early stage ag tech companies having global counterparts that they can connect with through programming to share that perspective, but then also get a reverse soft landing into those international markets. So we're hopeful if our early experiments go well that we can really unleash an opportunity for Canadian ag tech companies to not only solve that problem right here at home, but also through the US and other international markets. And then lastly is always to make sure that, we're connecting them, whether it be through, mentors, investors, et cetera, that are needed, for the growth and future rounds or future needs that they might have there. So I think there's a few different ways we'll tackle it, but we know that, obviously the Saskatchewan and Canadian agriculture industry is very globally connected already, and we're hopeful just to leverage that even further from a technology perspective.
I love that global perspective. It is
Yeah.
so important in this industry. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's probably a good time or a good space for us to wrap it up here, Kyle, but thanks for joining the presentation today. It was great to chat with you. And thank you to everybody here for tuning in today and chatting about cultivating a global ag tech hub and the Canadian Ag Tech Accelerator.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.